I'm about to turn your world upside down, right where you're sitting. Okay, I know some of you might be skeptical, but I'm still gonna do it. Also, international creativity regulations require that you buckle your seatbelts and put your phones into imagination mode. Okay, I know you don't actually have seatbelts, but I still actually need you to buckle up, so go ahead. And no, I'm not really a pilot. I mean, for one thing, I have Tourette syndrome, so I'm not sure with the way I sometimes blink and twitch if they'd let me fly a plane. But we're going to take this auditorium for a spin. Think of me as your guide to seeing the world and the universe, and maybe even yourselves, in a new way. As a kid, I believed that the world revolved around me because that's how kids think. And some adults, too. This sense that I was at the center of the universe wasn't helped by the fact that I was born right here in Omaha, Nebraska, smack dab in the middle of the country. At school, we had this really big map of the United States, and I was always looking to the middle of the map, to Omaha, because, well, that's where I was from. I always felt sorry for Alaska and Hawaii stuck down there in the corner, like they'd done something wrong. I mean, Alaska should have been up by the ceiling, and Hawaii should have been out the window. Did I sometimes get in trouble for daydreaming? Yeah, I was looking for Hawaii. But my attention always came back to the middle, to Omaha, my center of gravity. My family really never traveled much beyond a very small radius of Omaha, so my world, my universe, wasn't very big. That all changed in my early 30s when I had a chance to travel abroad, and it blew my mind. Imagine Russia in January. It was absolutely bitterly cold, and I loved every minute of it. Now, did I feel far from home? Yeah. Did I sort of feel disoriented, like I was, visiting another planet? Yeah. I don't know, maybe it was just the jet lag or the vodka I had picked up at that kiosk. So to ground myself, I took out a map of Russia and I studied it. And I found myself looking to the middle of the map of Russia, expecting to find Omaha, somewhere east of Moscow. Of course, there was no Omaha in Russia, and I continued to feel sort of dizzy and lightheaded. This weird sense of disorientation became an even bigger issue when, not all that long ago, for the first time ever, I moved away from Omaha, and I found myself living in Innsbruck, Austria. Now, Innsbruck, if you don't know, is in the western part of Austria, and it's completely surrounded by the Alps, which are stunning. But those mountains can be really huge and kind of overpowering. So to see the night sky, I pretty much had to look straight up. And because of those mountains, unlike here in Nebraska, where everything's kind of wide open and flat, I no longer had glorious sunrises and glorious sunsets. And because I couldn't see the horizon, I kept forgetting which way was west and which way was east. So I would look at a map of Austria to remind myself. And then that's when I realized that, once again, I was looking to the middle of the map of Austria, expecting to find, you guessed it, Omaha. Now, Austria doesn't look like Nebraska. I mean, it has sort of this longish shape. And weirdly, Austria would fit inside of Nebraska. But no matter how hard I tried, of course, I couldn't find Omaha in Austria. And I'm sure this sense of disorientation wasn't helped by the fact that I was living in a new culture with new food, new language, new architecture. I didn't have a car, so I mostly walked everywhere, and I really enjoyed exploring Innsbruck on foot. And I loved so much hiking in the Alps. But I also found comfort in a routine, and I noticed I was going to the same shops in the same supermarket that felt familiar. And that's when I remembered the advice from an old friend that you should always mix up your routine. So, if you're going home from work or school, change up your route. This keeps the pathways in your brain fresh, and you just might experience something really new and cool. So I did just that. And that's when I met a homeless man outside of a shopping mall. I would bring him water and fruit. He was deaf and would try to speak to me in German. The only problem was I didn't speak German. So mostly we would exchange smiles. And right now, even now, I can see his smiling face, and it was just lovely. One day, I brought a sketchbook. I thought, well, maybe he can write down some words in German, and I can translate, and we can try to have a conversation. But instead, he drew a map. And on the map, he wrote Slovenia. And then he made an arrow to indicate that that's where he's from. And I realized as he's making the map that he's drawing it from his perspective, but from where I was, his map was upside down. So that's what got me thinking more about maps and what they represent, and how funny it was that I was always looking for Omaha in the middle of maps of other countries. Now, maps help us find our place in the world, and when I go visit a new city or country, I don't know where I'd be without the map on my phone. But maps are just a human construct. Did you know that north hasn't always been at the top of maps? If you go back to ancient Egypt, many of those maps had east at the top because that's where the sun rises. And throughout history, some maps have even had south at the top. Now, you might say that north is at the top of modern maps because of magnetic north and the North Star, and sure, to some degree that might be true. Not to mention that north might be at the top of maps because in the 16th century, many of the world's explorers were coming from Europe, which is in the northern hemisphere. So a lot of those maps were made with a north orientation. But as it turns out, that's not the whole story. In fact, there's really no good reason that north has to be at the top of a map. Okay, how are those seatbelts? Fully buckled? Ma'am, buckled up? Sir? Okay, who's ready for some turbulence? Who's ready for some co-turbulence? Okay, let's get turbulent. Okay, even if north is at the top because of magnetic north, keep in mind that magnetic north is on the move. In fact, many times during our planet's history, the poles have reversed, and they will do so again. In fact, we're due for another pole reversal soon, maybe even before I finish this talk. Also, some studies show that putting north at the top of a map creates something called directional bias. Because we associate up with good and down with bad. And don't even get me started on that whole heaven and hell thing. And then consider the cosmos. Is there nothing more amazing than looking into the night sky? I want us all to look up right now. I want us all to look up. Look up, close your eyes, and imagine the night sky. Can't you see all of those stars? Look, can you see Venus? And over there, I think that's Saturn. Oh, it's a shooting star, make a wish. Okay, so maybe now you're thinking, well, yeah, Jeff, I think up is better. Okay, well, I'm here to tell you that many of the things you've come to believe about the universe are just dead wrong. Magnetic north, you can't trust that sly dog, magnetic north. Up, you can't trust up. Up isn't better. And maps, you really can't trust maps either. Maps lie. Earlier, I said I'm going to turn your world upside down right where you are sitting. So right now, I want you to think about a map of a place where you feel most connected. Maybe like me, you're from Nebraska. Maybe you're from Iowa, Kentucky, Florida, Germany, France. Wherever it is, think about that map and really get it in your head. What happens when you turn your map upside down? What happens when you turn your map sideways? Do you feel any turbulence inside? Do you feel thrown off a little bit? I sure hope so. Because maps are just something dreamed up. They don't really exist. Earlier, I was telling you about that big map of the United States in my grade school classroom, and I was gesturing over there to Hawaii. But that was to my left. For you, that was to your right, because it's all a matter of perspective. Okay, so right now we're going to take this flying auditorium even higher. We're going into space. We're going into orbit. I want you to look out at the Earth. And I want you to think about that map that you just had in mind. When you look at the Earth, can you see your map of Nebraska or Iowa or Florida or Ireland? No, because maps don't exist. And up and down doesn't exist. In 1972, one of the Apollo astronauts took a glorious photo of the Earth. There it was, the big blue marble. Except that the Earth was upside down. NASA worried that this image of an upside down Earth would trouble us Earthlings. So before they released the image to the public, they flipped it. But from the perspective of those astronauts, the Earth was upside down. Which means that right now we're all right side up. And at the same time, we're upside down. And at the same time, we're sideways. Okay, real quick, once again, I want you to look up. I want you to look up. But wait. Is that up? What are you doing? Maybe that's up. I don't know, maybe that's up. Did you know at this moment, many light years away, stars are burning and flickering beneath your seats, beneath your feet? Because space is everywhere. We are in space. Quite a ride, eh? Okay, as we come in for a landing, let's all take a deep collective breath. Let me ask you to embrace the universe on its terms. And now that we're back, okay, you can unbuckle those seatbelts. But I'm going to ask you to keep your phone in imagination mode as long as you can. And just one more thing, before you leave here later today, think about the route that you plan on taking home or to the restaurant or out to do the shopping. Whatever that route is, change it even by a little bit. Turn one block sooner, one block later. Make a new map. And as you're driving or walking, remember that stars are above you and below you, in front of you and behind you, and that we are in space. Space is everywhere. And maybe with your new map, maybe you'll experience something really cool and exciting. Maybe you'll expand your universe even near where you live. And maybe you'll even meet someone new, just as I had in Innsbruck. And perhaps you'll share nothing more than a smile. But won't that smile be worth it? Won't that smile be magic? Thank you very much.